So we're kind of late getting going with the presentations, but Jim, our Vice President, now Program Manager, is going to introduce our speakers.
Good evening. Our first speaker just happens to be Jim Stafford, the before QO. Yeah, Jim received degrees from Purdue in electrical engineering and MIT in electrical engineering. He has worked for over 30 years at AT&T and was the director of computer operations when he retired. And he has a small woodworking business for 20 years, taught woodworking in Roswell, Alpharetta, and North Carolina. Received his ham license at age 16, and how many years is that? Extra class at 21. Talked to 268 different countries using 5 watts about the power of a screw in the Christmas tree bulb. Over 100 countries at 1 watt output. He enjoys experimenting, building small radios, Morse codes, long walks on the beach. No, works with youth at school. Jim Stafford.
Well, this is very humbling, embarrassing, all that. I don't do this. I tell my wife, look, I do what I like to do for fun, and I invite people to join me. That's basically my philosophy, and a lot of you have joined me. And Chuck says to talk up. So anyway, I'm here tonight. You should be getting a handout here from Jim. And it seems like it's not working. Is it working?
Yeah.
All right, okay. We worked with Jim a little bit on this to get what we call the triple play, and we have a handout, so he's handing them out. And I'm here tonight to really, I've talked before here on CW and several other clubs about CW. I'm kind of a nut about that. And I'm sort of the de facto guy, I guess, to do the CW special interest group every now and then, and this year we're doing it. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about CW and the internet age. It's a lot of people. I'm going to make this. Got to make this short because we don't have much time. But a lot of people say, why is maybe you've heard that CW is even more popular now than it was when you had to take a test for it. And I think that's that same old thing. If if you're forced to do something, sometimes you don't like to do it. But like in school, when you're in middle school, but when you got out, you find out, hey, history is pretty interesting, that kind of thing. But I hated it in school, that kind of thing. So go ahead and pop it up the next one here. There's a number of things that I've mentioned before. CW is very efficient. It's not as efficient as FT8, but there are some things you do on CW you don't do on FT8. 5 watts it's very popular with QRPers because 5 watts can do, CW can do what, 50 or 100 watts can do on a single sideband. You can mathematically show that. It's a skill that's worth knowing. It has history, it has heritage, and it is one of the things, you do not need a terminal to do it. Like a digital, you got to have a signal link, and you got to have FL Digi, and you got to have computers and FT8s and all that kind of thing. All you have to do is you have your ears. You got to have a receiver, you got to have something at the end. But the terminal is your ears, and your transmitting terminal is your hand. So it's very simple. It can save your life, and that if you know CW. It's essential if you want to do a lot of home brewing because CW transmitters are easier to build than sideband or kilowatts and that kind of thing. And it's actually enhanced by computers. A lot of you in here would, if I asked you, do you operate CW, you might, well, sort of. I know how to hear my own call and push a button and things like that. But that's because computers have helped you, and they let you, especially if you watch the CW operators at Field Day, it really is I think it's kind of cool watching them, hitting those keys, punch this and that. And they almost never touch a paddle or a key or a bug or anything because they can do it all with keys. So people say, wasn't that cheating? Well, you still have to copy the other station and answer them and figure out where your time is and all that. But it saves you from all that carpal tunnel syndrome of trying to pound out the answers to people. Next slide. Several people have asked me on Tech Talk and everything, you know, what is a straight key, what is a bug, what is a paddle, this kind of thing. And so I thought I'd just show you that and mention a couple of things. First of all, this is a code oscillator, and it has a little, it's MFJ, it has a little key built in. It's a straight key, and you can send with anything. You can use 2 nails and bang them with a wire on it, and you can bang them together. I don't recommend this key, okay? It's like 20 bucks at HRO. The other one that I don't recommend is this one here. This is a so-called the Japanese copy of the J38. It's referred to as the JJ38, Japan J38. It has little ball bearings in there. If it ever comes apart, you'll lose the bearings. And I've got a lot of key pieces at home that people have given me because they've lost the bearings. This one's like 30 bucks or something at HRO, I think it is. You can get a real this is a J38 type key, and you can, if you watch eBay, you can pay a lot of money if you just say, I want one by tomorrow, you know, or the very next one that pops up. But if you type telegraph key on eBay and you watch, you can get J37s and J38s shipped to you for around $30 if you're careful. You can pay $65 and get one by Monday, so to speak. But if you take your time, you can get a J38, and this is a much better key from World War II than these other two that are about the same amount of money. Now, Roger, if he could have, he would have printed this for me on his 3D printer because he's always printing me nice little things, and I appreciate Roger. But Roger didn't give me this key. It's a 3D printed straight key. Now, a straight key just goes like this, up and down, and your arm can get really tired running a straight key. But there's some, it's nice to learn on a straight key. You don't have to. A lot of people have mentioned about, well, let's see, if I go from the straight key, should I next go to the bug? No, don't go to the bug. Bug is an artifact from past years, but there are groups that I'll talk about in a minute that use the bug. This is, whoops, where's it going here? Let's try it here. Wait a minute. Let's try this one on. Well, let me tell you about this one first. This is called a side swiper. It's just essentially 2 keys standing up. You know, they're both connected. There's no dots or dashes, but you can. And you go back and forth like an H is, or S, 5, you know. What'd I say?
CQ.
Nice try. Okay. 73. Now, there's the Straight Key Century Club is a really good group to join. They're entirely enthusiastic. They're not quite as enthusiastic as FT8 operators, but if you want to find out if the band's open, you tune to the FT8 channel, right? But you also can tune down to about 20 kilohertz lower, and you'll find Straight Key Century Club people sending with straight keys to a great extent, but they'll let you do anything except the electronic key. So you can use a bug, and if I plug the bug in, many of you know what that is. It's, what was that? That's CQ. Okay. So anyway, one of the things I wanted to show you here is most of the bugs went really fast. I mean, I have a few. I think it's 7 or 8 bugs. But one of the guys on the internet showed how you can pay all kind of money for extra weights. One guy sells weights on the internet, and I looked at those and I said, those are fit on your framing square to lay out stairs, and you get them at Home Depot, 2 for $5. He sells them for $15 each postpaid, and he says he sold 87 of them. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? This one here is really good. Fella says he puts a clothespin on the end, and what I was sending was with the clothespin. If I do it here, let's see how fast that is? But I put the clothespin on here. See if I can get it back on here. So the clothespin is a good way to slow it down. Now, well, hey, oh, one thing I wanted to mention about this, this is a side swiper. I mentioned it earlier, but the reason I got it, and a guy named a guy in Idaho, K7SU, made it. Steve asked me if I made it in the shop. I couldn't make it for what he sells it for. It's got lead in it and everything like that. But one of the things that's nice about it is you can flip this switch, and then you can plug it into an electronic keyer like this. Okay. Turn it on. The electronic key makes dots on one side. So this, I figured if I didn't like Cootie, I could, they're called Cootie instead of a side swiper, you know, the old people. Is that right? Sorry.
Neil.
Anyway, that's all called, referred to as a Cootie. That one's even harder to use than the straight key. I didn't do one until I got this one. Now, here's the point. Let's see. Here's some of the things. You know, a lot of CW people do all these kind of things. They operate on mountaintops and EME, home brewers, traffic handlers, and things like that. Next slide. But coming up, starting right now in the next month or so, we're going to be doing a CW SIG, Special Interest Group in North Fulton. And it's going to kick off a week from Thursday night at my house, January 24th at 7:30. It's for greenies. I call greenies people that don't know CW at all or barely know it. And Jim, did you pass out things for me? On the back of your sheet is what I call the DIDA language, and it's one of the things I like people to know. There's not everybody agrees with this, but if you fold this in quarters and you get the first part up called Estonia, and you learn the letters in Estonia first, and the second quarter you learn are Dr. Mulch. And you can do it with the DIDA language. Did being a dot and da being a dash, so the letter A is DIDA. And my mother taught me Morse code, and people say, well, did she work for the railroad or something? No, she had the little card with the DIDA on it, and while I was drying dishes, she was washing dishes and asking me what's DIDA to did, and I learned it. And I didn't hear Morse code on a tone until about a week or two before I took my novice test. I just knew DIDA language. And the day I got my novice license, I was on the air. Now, I want you to, if you're going to be part of this and you don't know Morse code at all, you can learn the first 14 letters, both Estonia and Dr. Mulch. Those are the letters in those words. You can learn those very quickly. We can learn them here, but I don't have another 5 minutes to teach you. So, you could, but if you know those 14 letters and whatever else you need to know to make up your call sign, you can get on the air. And you don't have to copy everything to figure out what people are saying. Right, Paul? Anyway, Paul's in our little CW QRP contest team. Okay, it does take a commitment to practice, about 20 minutes a day. And sending is important, and you should have a way to make a sound with a key. If you don't have a key, we'll figure that out when you come over to my house on the 24th. After the 24th, we're going to do it on Discord, on like the chat room, only there's a voice feature of that, and you might want to try to get that going. Not everybody has been successful to get the voice part going, but it can be done. Okay, we got a lot of people that know how to do it. And in fact, this is a Weight Watcher kind of thing. In other words, you report in. So on Discord, we're going to meet a couple times a week, and on Discord, and we're for about an hour, and we're going to send CW and things like that, talk about where you get practice programs and all that kind of thing. If you're already in the gang that wants to improve, we have lots of techniques to suggest to you to improve. So join up with us. Now there's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room back there, and one of the things I mentioned on that, and by the way, that series of Estonia and all that is taken from the old ARRL Learning the Radio Telegraph Code. And I would like for Dana to come up here and Very Bad Memory, both of which have earned the coveted, and there's only, let's see, Very Bad Memory, K4BBM is only certificate number 17. Okay, stand here and hold this up for the camera. They have worked 10 stations. Come here, Dana. Dana, KN4BEV is certificate number 18. They both worked at least 10 stations on Morse code, having recently learned Morse code, I'm going to say that. Is that kind of true?
That's very
How
true.
long did you start?
Back in May.
Back in May, and you've worked lots more than 10.
Well, since then, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And when did you start doing it?
August of last year.
August of last, so like less than 3
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
And you've already worked, how many would you say?
Probably several hundred.
Several hundred on Morse code. They hit the secret. Now they enter contests on the Morse code, and they hit the secret, and that is you have to make contacts. If you set yourself a goal of making contacts, you can do Morse code. One a day would be good. Okay, next slide. Thank you, guys. Okay. Here, we have already these people signed up for the CW SIG, if you will. And they're signed up, and some can't come on the 24th, but they're going to participate. If you'd like to participate, I mentioned down at the bottom, guess what? You could drop out, so that's okay, but not really okay, but you could one. And there's a sign-up sheet in the back. So we'd like to have you come on the 24th. Are there any quick questions? No. Everybody, how many people know Morse code? How many knew Morse code to pass a test? That's more people. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Next speaker will be Bill Cobb, K4YJJ, graduate of the University of Tennessee, served in the U.S. Army for 2 years, management consulting. We focused on building a team that applied information technology to improve productivity, compliance, and logistic operations. He retired at the end of 2002, enthusiastic motorcycle flat track competitor. So he hung up his shoes at the end of 2012. Licensed and joined NARPO in 2008 and has served as club's webmaster since 2009. Operates from home and mobile on his L-Craft KX3 and his Yaesu 857D through just a wire antenna at home and a Tar Heel on the mobile. All fluent at this point. It's a little QRP, but little to no digital. And much to his chagrin, no CW. Bill Cobb.
Thanks, Jim. In the interest of time, we're going to run through this one really quick. Mike and I will try to split this program. So I'll let you handle it, Chuck. That's one less thing for me to drop. Go ahead. Let's hit the first slide. I wanted to put the website in the context of what we've all been talking about. You've heard a lot of our resources earlier in the meeting, and above the top line is what I kind of call the immediate feedback areas of our club. This is where I always go to find information. And I really think it's the backbone of what. Can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
To me, this is the backbone of our immediate feedback in the club. The groups IO Reflector, the NARPO Facebook, and of course the repeaters that Mike is going to turn around, going to talk about in a few minutes. Chuck, let's go to the next slide. The groups.io group is really a multi-purpose function, and I hope that in addition to receiving Reflector messages that you have signed up for the groups.io site, because on the site we have available an image of the calendar which you can see. You all can see that on the website that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. But the calendar here I think is a lot more explanatory. We have the ability for you all to enter your own photos from an activity and also interesting files. I think Jim Kuo probably has the record on adding files to the file section. A lot of good technical articles, good information about how to. So I would encourage you to join the groups.io site in order to be able to participate in that. The other site that we don't hear a lot about, Chuck, if you flip to the next page, is our Facebook page. I know Facebook is hot and cold. It's not as popular now as it used to be, but there is a Facebook group out there. There are about 209 members, as you can see, of it. And there's a fair amount of traffic on that. It's the kind of place that you can go to and ask a question and get response from the people on the website. So don't forget about that when you are looking for resources for answering your questions. Ron Gill put this thing together a couple of years ago, and it has, it's been there, it gets a fair amount of traffic. Chuck, next slide. Of course, Hungry Hands, e-news, and monthly meetings like tonight are kind of our intermediate category of swapping information. A lot of good information tonight from the different speakers. And then our websites, to me, are kind of the static part of our body of knowledge. They're out there. They don't get maintained as frequently as the Groups.io Reflector or Facebook, but they provide a valuable resource for all of us who need to find information about the club in more depth. Oftentimes, new people are looking for a club in North Fulton can go to our website and find information about us before they come to a member. Joe, I want to ask you how you found us tonight, but did you see the website before you came to the meeting?
No, I believe I stumbled on Daryl and Lori's giant antenna driving through the neighborhood.
We don't need the website, do we? Mike, are you ready? Okay. Back up, that's okay. The Aries website, Tony Ford is active in managing. And then, of course, Ham Jam, we have it's active during the part of the year when we are preparing for Ham Jam. So let's move on now and talk a little bit about the NARFL website, which is the subject topic here. Catherine Moore, actually, Fred's wife, originally created the site well before I joined the club, and the black background pages today are her design. The Mart we added in 2008. When I first met Fred, we were a club of, what, 60 members, Fred? And Fred was just beginning to drown in how do I handle all the renewals that he was expecting. So we popped in the Mart, and then we added the Aries site and the Ham Jam site later. One comment, and I do get compliments on the site because it is a great site, but it's not a great site because of what I do. Okay, thank you, Chuck. It's not a great site because of what I do. It's a great site because of contributions by all of the other members and people who have helped by sending articles my way, by saying, hey, do we have this? I think we need a page on this. There are around 300 pages in this website. It is gargantuan, but very few of them I have authored. So it ain't mine. Everybody else has helped me create it. Go, Chuck. What are their purposes? Of course, promotion. That one goes without saying, both for us and NARFL Radio and NARFL. So I'm not going to say anything more about that. We do, through the website, try to encourage participation in our amateur radio activities by communicating and then also documenting these activities. Chuck, next slide. We as a club, and this was one of the things that initially attracted me to NARFL, was the fact that we encourage participation in activities like this, next page, Chuck, and this. And of course, we try to, as much as possible, capture information about these activities on the website and let you know what is coming up so that you can pick and choose what you would like to participate in. Chuck? On the home page of the website, we try to highlight in the upcoming activities section all of the activities that I think of as we put them up. If you click here, the information, you will be taken in the title, you will be taken to the calendar entry that describes that activity, and you'll get more information. I'll show you a slide in just a second. Next slide, Chuck. You can also, if you are a member of the Groups.io website, or the Groups.io group, I guess, go directly to the calendar activity and click on any of the calendar's activities here and go to, next slide, a description of the activity which used to be found on a page in the website, but it was so difficult to keep that information current that we've started using the actual calendar detail page for information such as this, which was, what's that topic? I'm having trouble finding it.
Check time.
Tech Talk. How could I forget, Steve? Okay. So this information is available both from the homepage of the website and the calendar itself. Go ahead, Chuck. And then on the back end, we try to document what has happened so that you can come back and see who participated, catch people in embarrassing poses. This is 2018's activities. The pictures go back to 1980. Terry, there's a beautiful picture of Terry in 1980 in one of the Roswell libraries. Go back and take a look at some of these and see some of the heritage of the club. Lots and lots of fun. Chuck, next slide. The website is a marvelous resource of radio-related activities and history. Chuck, next slide. Bylaws, meetings, all of this is documented in great detail on the website. And the 2 pages that I really wanted to focus on, Chuck, that's the meetings page. Now this is kind of a layout of where we're going this year, but if you'll scroll down below, we go back all the way to 2011 for all of our monthly meetings, who presented, what was presented. In some cases, if the presenter gave us notes, gave us their handouts, there will be a link on this page to those notes. And in fact, these slides will be beside my part of the presentation after I get home tonight or sometime tomorrow. Also, Steve Mays, generally, once a meeting is videoed, we'll add the videos to our YouTube NARFL channel, and there is an entry on the menu on the home page or on all of the pages on the black background pages that points to the YouTube NARFL channel. So I think that's a great resource. Next page, Chuck. And then the membership chairman mentioned several times, how do I find when does my membership expire? Well, first, there's a list of NARFL members, and it is searchable. You can search and find your name, and on that list, it shows when your NARFL membership expires. Also, if you want to help, as was suggested, there is a list of memberships due to expire in 60 days. So another resource that's worth looking at. For the new members, if you are interested in how other people have designed the QSL cards, there's a great collection of examples of QSL cards submitted by members. And if you come up with a beautiful one, send it to me. We'll add it to the website. There are a couple of shack shots. If you want to see some examples, Neil, I believe we have yours. And I don't remember who the other shack shot was, but when you come up with an exemplary shack, why, send us a picture. We'll be glad to put it on display. And then there is a list of silent keys. So those 2, I think, are worth, keep prompting me, Chuck, are worth, those 2 pages, the meetings page and the membership page, are worth following up on. Next page, Chuck. Okay, Echolink, agonizing detail on how to get into Echolink. Mike's going to talk about repeaters. Good description on how to get into nets. There's a page if you are interested in helping a school teacher, seeing what we can do to help school teachers. There's a page on schools and teachers. And then there's a whole category of pages that I would just call, how do we become a better ham? And you can read the list. I don't have to go through that. Next page, Chuck. And then there's Mark. Our business tools, joining the club, buying apparel, buying a name badge, etc. Go there, log in. The board also has access to a hidden part of this, and if you're a board member, you will be able to see additional information on the menu on this page that provides tools for board members. Next slide. There's also, for most of us who forget how to change our email address, how to change our call sign, see what orders I've placed. I went back and looked today, and I've placed 26 orders since 2009. A bit of trivia, but if you forget how to do all of that, there is a section here that you can go back to see how to do it. Jim, next slide. that's all I have for right now. If you'd like to help me be a webmaster, be glad to entertain any volunteers. My term in this role, I've been in this since 2009, my term is limited. So, and we are in the process of rebuilding this website and WordPress. So I'll be glad to talk to any of you who have an interest in WordPress and interested in serving Norfolk as webmaster. So thank you very much.
Our final speaker this evening is Mike Roden, W5JR. Mike was first licensed in the spring of 1968 along with his dad. They held consecutive calls WN5 UOB, WN5 UOC, respectively. Today they hold W5JR and K5JR, respectively. Mike bought a life membership to the ARL at age 18. I'm going to get his money out of that one. Oh, I lost my place. He also was a life member of the TX VHF FM Society and the Hearst Amateur Radio Club. He's a founding member of the Armadillo Intertie, a Texas statewide RF-linked system of over 50 sites. Mike is a fellow of the Radio Club of America. After becoming a ham, he began working with repeaters right away and using surplus Motorola tube radios. He's always had an affinity for 6-meter, 220, 440 repeaters. In the past few years, 900 has been added to that list. He's built and maintained repeaters for the Hearst ARC, the Arlington ARC, Armadillo, Norfolk, and numerous other organizations along the way. His first climb of the Fort Worth 1,000-foot tower was at age 18. Funny you should ask. His dad judiciously scheduled an out-of-town trip for Mike's mom that day. Mike has other interests besides repeaters. He is an avid CW contester, both at home and from other locations. He has participated in the Georgia CUSO party as a rover for the last 10 years and part of the N4N rover team. Mike enjoys the winter 160-meter contest season. It meshes well with his addiction to golf the rest of the year, where he maintains a 5 handicap. Mike and his wife Kim, W5KAR, have lived in the Atlanta area for 18 years. Please welcome Mike Roden.
Thank you. Oh, and thank you. I'm a CW guy, so Chuck's going to keep telling me, hold up the microphone. Although my 50-year experience of using Motorola two-way radios for my ham rigs, you have to hold the microphone close when you're using one of those radios. So maybe I'll remember. So I'll try to make this brief. We have about 75 slides to get through tonight. Just kidding. Hey, looky there, beeps and boops. So all of you that have used the Norfolk repeaters, you know, when you unkey, you hear a beep, or it could be a boop. So what does all that mean? I'm going to go run through a bunch of slides here that kind of give some background on repeater operations for you as a user, and in particular, how that relates to the Norfolk repeaters. So for those of you that are musically inclined, the Roswell 2-meter repeater courtesy tone, that tone that you hear after you unkey, it's 600 hertz. The 145/47, 659 hertz. And the 440 repeater, 740. When we had other repeaters linked in, the 220 and 900, they came in with a tone of 988. So if you're driving around and listening to the repeaters, and you have a multi-band radio or multiple radios in your vehicle, when somebody comes on and announces where they're at, you know which repeater they're on if you've got some total skills, or maybe not. So for the, when the 2 meter and 440 repeaters are linked for our nets, you notice the tones change. They don't sound like they normally do. That's one way you can tell that it's in net mode. So if you're on 2 meters and somebody else is, the source that you're hearing from the talk line is also on 2 meters, it kind of goes boop boop. But if somebody's on 440 and you're listening on 2 meters, it goes beep boop. The tones are a little faster than that, but you can still catch the difference. The tones are not sequential in tone. And if you're on 440 and somebody comes in from 440, you hear it going beep beep. And if they're on 2 meters and you're on 440, it goes boop beep. And you can relate this in that the higher tone is associated with the higher frequency band. So that way, if you're on 2 meters and you hear somebody go boop boop, you know they're on 2, but if they're on 440 or from other sources, they may even be higher pitched. So, moving along to timers, some of the old folks here in the group would know that if you talk too long on the repeater input, it will time out, and then you get labeled as a bucket mouth if you do it repeatedly. So, in order to combat a stuck microphone or an open squelch or some other malady, there's a timer on each one of the receivers. And if a carrier stays on the input for uninterrupted for 3 minutes, on the repeater you'll hear a Morse code message that goes TO for timeout. And if you keep squeezing the microphone, no, the repeater's dead. Now, these are on the receivers, so the 2 meter receiver can time out, but the 440 receiver is still active. Just in case you can't get in. So when that is cleared, you also hear another TO in Morse code. Of note is that the timer on that receiver is not reset until you actually hear the courtesy tone, the beep courtesy tone. So if someone quick keys, somebody unkeys and plans, jumps right in and starts the conversation without the courtesy tone having cycled, the timer didn't cycle, so the meter is still running, just FYI. If you do that 2 or 3 times, and the repeater will time out, the receiver will time out. Just a word from the wise. So why is there a courtesy tone in these timers? The additional courtesy tone is to allow time for other stations to break in so they can join the conversation or ask to move somebody else off to another frequency or whatever. The typical time frame for the delay for when the station unkeys and that tone, the courtesy tone shows up, is about a second. All of these are adjustable, and some of our net configurations change some of these, but this is the typical day-to-day operation. That tone must complete before the timer's reset. So if somebody keys up right away, again, the timer is still, the meter's running on the timer. So if you're new to repeaters, how do you let somebody know that you're available for a call? Well, in most, other modes besides FM or repeaters in general, you call CQ. Well, I've been doing this for 50 years. That's not how the repeater guys decided they wanted to do it. It's been that way forever, and passing this along, this information along, it's not cool to call CQ on a repeater. It's not illegal, it doesn't matter, but in order to fit in and be one of the cool people, the right way, the preferred way, The recommended way is key up the microphone, pause just a little bit to make sure all of the arrows get pointed in the right direction. You say, "This is W5JR listening," and unkey, and wait for the pilot. It may or may not happen. And then, you don't want to disappear right away because somebody may have to put down their soldering iron or put down their woodworking tools or walk over, finish an email and then walk over the radio to answer you. So be patient, wait for a few moments before you zip off to another frequency and say, "Hey, I'm listening." Just, give it some time. Now, mobile and portable, despite what Steve May says, those are old habits. I used to do it often myself and probably still do for a lot of times. Mobile and portable is no longer an FCC requirement. Yes, you can do it if you want to, or you don't have to do it. It's no longer mandatory. And for clarity, some of us have multiple radios. Many of you may have multiple radios or a dual band radio that has listens to both bands simultaneously. If somebody pops on, says, "Hi, this is W5JR listening," and you miss the courtesy tone or for whatever other reason, maybe that repeater doesn't have a courtesy tone if it's not an R4 repeater. You might want to add something for clarity, like "This is W5JR listening 4/7, or listening 2 meters, or listening Roswell Water Tower. Just make it a little more specific for others that were across the room, or they were on a phone call, or they were in the middle of having a discussion with their spouse or their children or their pet. Then they rush over the radio, they go, "Which one of those was I calling on?" So give them an extra little clue. Also, when you talk on a repeater, don't get in a hurry. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but I'll go through the process that happens. If you're on HF or in the weak signal guys where you're on a mode like sideband, you key up and you start talking, people hear you pretty much right away. In the FM repeater world, it doesn't happen quite that fast. You key your radio, and your transmitter has to come up to power. Since it's not a tube radio anymore, it usually happens a little faster than it used to. Then the repeater receiver has to detect that there's a signal there and hear you. And then at the repeater receiver, the CTCSS or PL decoder has to decode, and that's not instantaneous. Then the repeater transmitter has to key up. Those used to have relays in them, so it took a while for the clunk to happen and get the transmitter going. That's not the case these days anymore. But the transmitter still has to key up, start generating RF, and that's not instantaneous. The person that's listening to you, their receiver now has to detect the signal, and its squelch has to open, or if they're in just carrier squelch mode. But if they have their mobile or portable in tone decode to eliminate some of the other noises that they might be hearing, now their CTCSS decoder has to decode. Then you actually get a voice going on the other end. So it's not instantaneous. It could be a quarter of a second from the time you squeeze the microphone till all of these arrows get lined up and there's audio coming out the other end. So just kind of relax. Don't be in a hurry. So the Roswell Water Tower site. Some of the new people in the club may not have driven by this site. This is a fairly old picture. It doesn't have our exact antenna up here on the top. It's been changed out to a much more robust antenna. And the city of Roswell has painted this tower since. The dishes and the cable TV antennas are also gone. So this is where the 14706 repeater is, and the Matt Park 44315 repeater. A couple of pictures of when they actually had here. Mac and Jim working on the site. The 06 repeater is here. It's duplexers, an additional filter cavity. I mean, that's even though that physically the picture says it's large compared to this, it's actually on this rack back here, so it's really small. A tiny 20-watt repeater. It's incredible how well this works if you've not been on the 44315 repeater. So, to the big picture here, 47 and 475 return to the air. As Daryl was talking about earlier, when we knew there was a possibility that we would be on a site, we said, you know, we ought to get prepared. We should do this somewhere where we have tools and can leave things out versus trying to do it in a rush at wherever this other location might turn out to be, whenever that might turn out to happen. So I had some space in one of my garages. We decided, okay, we figured out how much rack space we have, what equipment we're going to try to stuff in those racks, so that we can then disassemble it and have it ready to go as a kit. Just bolt it together. And, oh yeah, it'll only take a couple of hours. My wife has learned that when I say, oh, we'll be home by 4, she just says, I'll see you tomorrow. Many of those Texas trips where you have to drive 200 miles to get to a site, and then you work on a site, and you go, well, it's only going to take us a couple of hours once we get there. And then about 3 or 4 in the morning, you leave. My friends in California that have similar systems, they just go up on Friday, they camp there and stay there, up on the mountaintop, and come home on Monday. They just stay there. But they do a lot of work. So we got ready for a quick install. Yeah, it only turned out to be just a few hours, didn't it, Daryl? So those of you that have not seen any of the presentations before, this is where the Narfel site used to be on Sweat. That tower is no longer there. We temporarily moved to here, which was one of the original tower that we were on. And I'm getting the signal back here, so we have 60 more slides to go through. So I was on a trip. I said, I wonder if we can put the Narfel repeater up here. That's actually the shed that's up there. So we started staging the repeaters here in my garage, or the 2 repeaters. And as I think I mentioned in some of the pictures on the remailer, these cavities are the duplexer for the 2-meter repeater. That's the duplexer for the 440 repeater. A little bit of difference in size. And then this is the 2-meter repeater. And this is the 440 repeater. So power supplies, controllers. So the new location, as Daryl has mentioned, it's a real communication site. It's a working, well thought out, important site to Fulton County. So it's clean, has emergency power, lots of emergency power. And on top of that, something that we've not had at Sweat, it's heated and air conditioned. Woohoo! So our power amplifiers, repeater power amplifiers, may have a little longer lifespan if Bob SPL won't have to do as much repair. We'll see. So the day that we were going to Margaret Falls, the antennas had already been installed. Yes, it's 360, not 320. The antennas had already been installed just a few days earlier. That was kind of one of the things we were waiting on to be able to do our work at the site. But it turned out to be an all-day rack install, just for the 2 racks. Yes, we waited until it was raining. And I'm really glad that we did the staging work beforehand. Otherwise, we never would have been able to complete this in one day. Pictures you saw, my pictures shows you it was gray that day, not the one that Daryl had earlier. But our antennas are at this level, zoomed in. As Daryl said, this is the VHF 2-meter antenna and a 440 antenna. These are the antennas that we had at Sweat. And there's just a few cables coming into this building, just a few. That's ours, and that's ours. All the rest of these belong to public safety guys. And of course, it's a comm site, so there's a lot of bonding going on here too. Not just hams meeting hams, but lightning and grounding bonding. The equipment racks, you can see in these pictures, there's a few other pieces of radio gear in here besides us. So it's really nice. We have a very good location, I think a very stable location. And I'd like to thank the folks that were at my place and at Morgan Falls on the day that we did the install. So, any questions? Like 10,000 of them? Fred wants to get to his pie after.
Yes, I will go eat pie.
And Joe?
Mike, you talked about linking between the 220 and 440. Who does that? What's the protocol?
Today, the 220 and 900 repeaters are not operational, but the 2-meter and 440 repeaters are on site there. The protocol there is they automatically connect for our nets. The controller is smart enough that he can write scripts, which I did several years ago, that will automatically connect those so that I don't have to physically be available. It helps if the clock is on at the right time, so that it happens, when it needs to happen. And it's not a user function, but if we need to tie them together for any particular reason, we can do that. Eddie?
Mike, did we have to provide our own coax feed, or did they provide it? Coax, is that?
We were fortunate that our antennas replaced some antennas that were being vacated. So
Very good.
we were in the right place at the right time.
Good.
Otherwise, you don't just go get 400 feet of heliacs.
How about 800?
Well, in this case, 800 feet of heliacs. That's correct.
Mike,
Yes,
are we tied into their generators for backup?
we are connected into the same power plugs that they connect to. So we won't go off the air. That would be a big problem if we go off the air. We are working to get internet physically at the site because currently the Echolink is off-site. So we're trying to move that in. That'll be a later project once we get that far down the road. And we are working continue to work on ways to get 220 and 900 back on the air, and that will be connectable somehow whenever we figure out how we're going to do that. No more questions. This was easy because these guys answered all of them beforehand.